Khabib, it's easy. But yeah, it's easy. You don't fucking do anything. Of course it's easy. You lost every fighter you ever fucking had, and you literally do nothing. Of course it's fucking easy. You don't do anything.
100%.
Yeah, you've advanced the sport of boxing big time, Oscar. Oh my God, I'm done. I didn't even. Well, I guess I can now, but I left it alone. It's embarrassing at this point.
Dana.
Yeah.
For all the fans out there that are obviously pretty happy that you got into this sport, the UFC sport, over 20 years ago, very strange way, without realizing it, need to be a little maybe thankful to a mobster named Whitey Bulger.
Right.
I don't have to say anymore. Obviously, after that, you left Boston. You were living up in Boston, and you moved to Vegas, where you wound up being who you are and creating what you created. Because you did create it. You did come up with the idea and bring it to the Fertitta brothers. And you deserve credit for that. But can you talk about that a little bit, about Whitey Bulger?
Everybody says it was Whitey. It wasn't him. It was his crew. And
Kevin Weeks?
Yeah, exactly. So Boston and boxing and everything that happened along the way is all, part of the story and what led me here. I wouldn't change any of it. It was all incredible, actually. It's incredible.
What's interesting about that, Dana, I actually grew up in Somerville and went to Winter Hill High School and knew Howie Winter. He was like my dad's age, so I knew him from being around. And I didn't know a Whitey and his guys, but like growing up there, you knew these people were always around. So to see how the whole story evolved with Whitey and Kevin and that whole crew was crazy. I actually worked at the Billerica House of Corrections with Mickey Ward. I actually told him we were interviewing you today. He says to say hello. He was a guard there at the same time with me, and Dickie Eklund was an inmate there along with my brother when Mickey and I were guards together. It's a crazy story.
Boston is a unique, crazy place, especially in the fucking 80s, man.
Yep.
Boston in the 80s was a very unique place. And I lived right in the heart of Southie, and I lived there for years, and I'd never seen those guys. I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't, but you know who runs shit in that town. But I'd never seen them until the day they walked into the gym and approached me.
You also knew just from reputation that they weren't clowning around, that they would actually do something. Like it was not a bullshit thing.
You're damn right they do. Yeah, those were dudes and a time and place that you didn't fuck with. You got that Delta plane ticket to Vegas. That's what you did.
Just elaborate on it just a little bit so the fans, because they hear us talking around it, but a lot of fans out there won't know exactly, what happened and what led you to Vegas and exactly the phone call.
So these guys rolled up on me one day at the gym and basically told me that I owed them money. And, I said, it was like $1,500, $2,500, whatever the number was at the time. But you might as well ask me for $25,000. I didn't have it, and they said, "Get it from your fucking girlfriend." They knew I had a girlfriend, so I said, "Yeah, she doesn't have it either." So I just sort of blew it off. Story short, one day I got a phone call at my house, and they're basically like, "You owe some money by tomorrow, 1:00." I said, "Or what?" You're going to find out. So I literally hung up the phone.
Hello, Delta. You got
That's exactly what I did. I hung up, picked it back up, and got a one-way flight to Vegas.
The crazy thing is, it wasn't even about the $1,500. If it was $25, it's still, once you give it to them, you give it all the time. You're hooked.
100%.
For people who don't know, back in the 70s and 80s in Charlestown and South Boston, they had a series of unsolved murders where guys would walk into a bar full of people, shoot someone dead, the cops show up, ask 200 people in the bar, what happened? And every single person says they were in the bathroom. And it was like the unsolved murders, like the highest per capita murder in the country at the time. It was like all Irish gangland slayings where no one would ever say a word out of fear of these people. So when they say that you owe the money, you better run, pay or scram.
Thanks for not calling me a liar. Thank you very much. I respect you a lot more. At least you admit the truth. Thank you very much.
And then you knew you couldn't call the police. It was like, it was the unwritten law that you couldn't call the police. And then you end up finding out later that Whitey was in with the FBI and knew anybody that would call the police on him.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty, isn't it funny, Dana, how life, has those twists and turns, how fate can be decided by something like that? Who would have thought that by forcing you to go to Vegas, that it would turn your life around and create what it created?
And the timing. Everything in life is about timing. I was eventually going to go back to Vegas, but I definitely wasn't going back to Vegas that soon. And if I didn't go back at the time that I went, none of this shit would have lined up the way that it did. You're absolutely right. It's incredible.
It really is.
Do you ever sit back and think to yourself, because I'm sure there's a part of you like everyone where you think, I'm just a regular guy and things just went together, and now you view like Dana White, you're speaking at the Republican convention, you're friends with the president, regardless of your politics, it's still unbelievable that you're on speed dial with a president of the United States. Do you ever sit back and think to yourself like, holy shit, I did this, and like take a minute to like soak it all in and enjoy it?
Yeah, you know what? Every once in a while, Lorenzo Fertitta and I, whether we're drinking or whatever it'll be, we'll end up calling each other and going, when you start lining up everything the way that it laid out, it's fascinating.
Unbelievable. It's almost very relatable where I'm like, I think you're a couple years older than me. I just turned 50, but I look at you and I'm like, man, that guy just took the opportunity and like kicked ass all the way to the top. It's awesome. I'm really happy for you. So I don't want to be too much of an ass kisser, but congratulations.
No, you know what? That's Boston, baby. That's fucking Boston. You know who, of all people, who calls me and tells me shit like that all the time is Bob Kraft. Bob Kraft is I love the fact that you're a Boston guy and you did this and you did that. I got Bob Kraft telling me that. I'm like, you've done pretty fucking well for yourself too. You know what I mean? So, that's Boston, man. That's how Boston people treat Boston people.
Half of them will celebrate you, the other half will wish death on you. It's pretty standard.
All for that, Dana, since there was a certain name that was mentioned a couple minutes ago in the middle of that conversation, I obviously don't know you well. Met you a couple times and know who you are, but you have a trait that I think you have, I believe you have, that I do admire. I think it's one of the most important traits actually for a person. It's the trait of loyalty. And early on with the UFC's infancy there wasn't a lot of places that would allow you into a venue with the UFC. And quite frankly, you weren't allowed, the commissions in New York wouldn't allow the fights. I remember when that was going on in different places. And Donald Trump allowed you into, if my memory serves me right, into the Taj Mahal.
That's right.
And you never forgot that. I mean, you obviously was very helpful to you to bring you in when other people were closing their doors to the UFC product. And you wound up obviously campaigning for him in 2016, and then later on when he bid again for the re-election, and you've been loyal to him since. Talk about that.
Yeah, so when we first bought this thing had such a bad stigma attached to it that venues didn't even want us to come there. So if you think about the time, the Trump brand is here. The UFC brand is, down here. And he got it. He loved it. And he said, we'd love to have you here at the Taj Mahal. Cut us a great deal. Showed up for the first fight of the night and stayed till the last fight of the night. Watched the whole show, both the shows that we did at the Taj. And then after that, every good thing that ever happened to me in my career, Trump would reach out of the blue and say, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. I knew you guys were going to make it. You this, that, and all this stuff. Couldn't be a nicer guy doing that for him. Then, once, our friendship went to a whole nother level, and, you couldn't ask for a more stand-up. Ask anybody who's ever known Trump, has been friends with him for years. Everybody loves him.
Like I said, to me, loyalty is, if I had a choice of having a person around me, or even a fighter, to be quite frankly, with one trait, It would be that trait, because I believe there's power to that trait. Because
I'm with you.
that's it. I just believe that. I believe that to be loyal to someone, you have to be strong. You have to be able to sacrifice. You have to be able to risk yourself. That's strength. That's strength. When I say even fighters, you know the fight I think of, Dana, right away? That didn't come far from you guys. Marvin Hagler.
Yeah.
That guy was loyal to the Petronelli brothers. And a lot of people, I happen to know for a fact, begged him, tried to convince him to get away from them. He never, ever would do that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it worked well for him. You know, when people talk about him and when I talk about him, obviously maybe one of the greatest southpaws and greatest middleweights of all time. Could fight inside, could fight outside, could do everything, could punch. Obviously, one of the greatest chins of all time. But all of that, the core to all of that, everything that I just mentioned, all those characteristics, all those talents, abilities, his greatest ability, his greatest talent was character, was based around character, was the strength to depend on him. That's what you want in a loyal friend, that you could depend on a friend. Just a simple thing like that.
And there's been, you know better than anybody knows how fucking dirty the fight business is, man, and how everybody's just, it doesn't take much to get somebody to cut somebody's throat in the fight business. But there's been a lot of fighters that have been incredibly loyal to me, and I've been incredibly loyal to them.